Hello there, everyone. This is Andre of GVGINU. Thank you for giving me your time and your ear, and hopefully you'll like what I have to say, or at least understand it. I recently watched the video about Project H.A.M.M.E.R, which was supposed to be a Wii game that was going to be created by Nintendo Software Technology, which were like the makers of games like 1080 Avalanche and I think it's 1080 Snowboarding. I said 1080 Avalanche. They used to make a lot of really good games, and Project H.A.M.M.E.R was basically the end of a really good team for some very shady reasons. And the video is on Unseen64 Tamaki's channel. I'll put the link down in the description. It's it's definitely worth a listen. It's a really good video, and it shines some light, some not so pretty light, on one of my favorite companies in the gaming industry. So, but the reason I like the video is because it's from a completely unbiased standpoint from the person reporting the information. The information is not, it's not tampered with. It's given straightforward. There are no opinions injected, just basically giving light to the accusations that are placed against the upper management of Nintendo Software Technology. And hence I spoke specifically Nintendo Software Technology, because people have seen this video. People have seen reports about this video. And apparently a lot of people are going with the assumption that this is Nintendo as a whole, when this is really just a smaller branch of Nintendo that had some very messed up problems. Personally, I think the project had some potential, and from what I understand, the devs, the people that were working on the game, which a lot of these people have left and gone to other companies or just dropped out of the gaming industry as a whole, and that to me that's really sad, because there shouldn't be anything to stop you from doing the stuff that you love, especially if you make great stuff that entertains a lot of people. But from my understanding, there were some problems dealing with the Japanese members of the management for Nintendo Software Technology, whereas the developers would have ideas that they think could work and make the gameplay for Project H.A.M.M.E.R, which actually had an official name called Metal X. Was it Metal X Metallics? It was either Metal X or Metallics, or one of the two. But it had an official name, but they couldn't get the game to be fun. It was like this really, it was kind of like a really gritty game, which to me it looked interesting. I mean, like, especially for the time, it would have been actually a pretty good game for the Wii U if they could have made the gameplay enjoyable. But they couldn't really do that, and the developers of the game had ideas, or at least from what they've said, they had ideas that they thought would have worked. Things that they think would have made the gameplay more enjoyable and more fun for people to play the game. But from what is reported, the upper management of that branch, the Japanese upper management of that branch, would not listen to their ideas. They would not consider them, and pretty much outright denied a lot of what they were saying, as far as what is reported. We only have one side of the story, because the other side of the story really isn't willing to comment on it. So the other participants on the opposite end of this don't really want to say anything about it. To me personally, but this is just my thought process. That would mean that they either felt like they didn't do anything wrong or they had something to hide. It was one of those two things. So it could be either one of those things. They could feel like they really just didn't do anything wrong and they really don't care to comment, or they really have something to hide and they don't want people to know. But to me, that it's a bother. I really do wish that they would have said something. They would have made some sort of comment. But sometimes no information is better than some information for certain people. So it is what it is. We can't change it. We can't fix it. And unfortunately, it's just a project that had potential that it really got wasted. I mean, they tried to... The problem was it looked like where instead of tweaking gameplay in a way that would have made the game fun and enjoyable to play, they tried to tweak aesthetics, and the aesthetics really just didn't do anything because the gameplay itself still wasn't all that great. And there were some reports of some cultural differences that cause clashes. Now, people will say it's racism and nationalism, but you also have to understand that people in the East operate very differently from people over here in the West. I don't know exactly how people in the East operate, but I do know that there is a lot of pride in what they do. Just like there could be a lot of pride in what people over here in the West side of the world do. But that is still no excuse as to how things went down. There's no excuse to that. I mean, because it could have been just they felt like culturally they understood where they were trying to go, and the Western side of things just didn't, but they were in power, so they made the final decision, which probably was the biggest problem. Whereas I think that this team of basically Western developers should have been overseen by NOA rather than a team that's probably going to be very culturally different, especially when the game was based on Western ideals or Western, I guess I'd say archetypes. It was based on Western things, Western society, pretty much. So that probably also caused a lot of the problems. So, I have no problem with the video. The video itself is great. It's spot on. It's right to the point. Like I said, there are no injected opinions. It's completely objective based on the given information. And even the person who put up the video, Unseen64 Tamaki, literally said that this video is not indicative of Nintendo as a whole. This is just this one specific situation dealing with these specific people, basically. But yet everyone's running with this and using this negative thing to paint the brush, the whole spectrum, bad. And saying that this is why Western devs don't want to work with Nintendo. Not thinking about the fact that they have Retro. They have Retro Studios. They work with Next Level Games. And they work really hard with a lot of the indie developers that are out there, like Renegade Kid. And the majority of them, for what I've seen, are Western developers. So I don't think it's an East versus West thing in the sense of they don't want to work with anybody over here. I think at that point in time there were some arrogant people in the management that felt like they knew better rather than wanting to hear the ideas of the people that were actually doing the work and playing the game. That, I believe, was really what the problem was. And it could have been the opposite as well. It could have been arrogance on the developers, but we don't have both sides of the story, so we don't know fully. Though, from my position, if these people were that impassioned about this, and they felt like they had to leave, even the ones that left and just never got back into the gaming industry, they felt hurt somewhere. They really felt hurt somewhere that they were not being represented or listened to or taken seriously. So that is why I would more typically, personally, I'd probably believe that the devs just didn't get heard. But it also depends on how they delivered what they had to say, and there's no way to know that unless you were there. And it also depends on how the upper management took it. They may have presented it in a calm and peaceable manner, but upper management could have been like, well, they're trying to take over our jobs, or they're trying to tell us how we should do our jobs. And that might be how, it just depends on, there's so many factors involved. It's really a pain in the butt to try to figure them all out. Though my general thought would be that there was some arrogance in the management, and they didn't want to, say, listen to people beneath them. As far as the corporate ladder went, they didn't want to listen to people beneath them, which was probably the problem. And there's one thing I would say. People get in power. We get to be corrupted. We get to be easily manipulated when we're in power. And we sometimes get to feeling ourselves and think we know shit that we don't know. And that happens. And that could have happened. Every person is susceptible to that. Every person. Some of us are less susceptible than others, but every person is susceptible to that. But getting to my real point here. There's no excuse for this, as I've said before. I just don't believe it is the right thing to do to paint everybody with the same brush. As much as I hate to say it, there are good developers that work with Ubisoft. It's just Ubisoft is generally a shitty publisher. Same with EA. They have good developers that work with them, but they're generally shitty publishers. And the publishers are the ones that end up causing the problems. At least in general. So I don't really think it's a good idea to paint everyone with the same brush. I really don't. And Nintendo has their problems. But to paint the whole company based on what a small portion did. And I'll also say this. I don't think it's right that those people involved in this situation went unpunished. I don't think it's right, because no matter how big their involvement no matter how big their involvement was in this situation, at some point they had caused part of this friction. You can't have an argument between two people without both sides feeding into that argument. Because if one person doesn't argue, then the other side looks like an idiot. That's generally how it works. Because at that point you're arguing to yourself and the person is ignoring you. And it kind of hurts me a little bit, because I've seen a lot of people just jump up and say, "Oh, this is disgusting" on Nintendo. But like, it's disgusting that it happened. That I can agree with. I cannot agree that it's disgusting for the whole company when there was just a small group of assholes among them. And I'm going to bring this up because this is actually a pretty good representation of this. Remember, not too long ago, a little under a year ago, gamers were told we were dead. We were told we were misogynist. We were told that we hate women. We were told that we were self-loathing basement dwellers who were told that we were basically the scum of the earth. Remember that, how journalists kind of all said the same thing? And then there was a revolt and uprising against that with Gamergate. Remember that. The funny thing is, I know a lot of people that are saying this about Nintendo actually sided with Gamergate. At this point, siding with Gamergate and then completely painting Nintendo in a negative light, the whole company in a negative light, over this incident, over this one incident, that makes you a hypocrite. I hate to say it that way, but that's actually the... Think about it. That's how it works. I understand a lot of people are upset with Nintendo, but you have to treat each situation individually. You cannot treat every situation as one whole thing. Because if we did that, then you'd understand that the company as a whole generally isn't that bad. They probably don't understand a whole lot dealing with the Western side of the world, but they're generally not that bad. But that's another issue for another time. I'm not here to defend Nintendo. Like I said, it's a bad look on the company no matter what, because these people represent the company. But these people are also a small portion of the company. They're not the whole company. Just like I can't say all gamers are bad people because a few gamers are swatter idiots. Yes, I call those people idiots because you get mad that someone beat you in a game, so you have to call a SWAT team and send them to their house, which could potentially be very dangerous if none of these people have learned anything in recent years about the boy who got shot in his home because he had a Wii remote in his hand when he answered the door and a female police officer was standing there and she was trigger happy as all hell. It just shot him and killed him, basically right in front of his family. His little sister tried to run over and console him, and this woman yelled at that little girl and told her to leave, told her to shut up or something and go away. And she had to run off away from her brother who was dying on the floor of their house because he had a Wii remote in his hand. The police officer didn't ask questions. She just shot first. If we're all going to have a shoot first mentality, we'll all be dead pretty soon. We can't have a shoot first mentality. Especially not with video games. It's entertainment. Another thing to think about, if everybody is so disgusted at Nintendo with this, stop supporting Nintendo. Just cut it. Cut it. Just cut it. Just stop supporting them. Whether you like them or not, stop supporting them. Just cut it. Just cut it off right there. Just stop supporting them. But this, to the same token, to be fair, don't support companies like Walmart. Don't support companies like Target. Don't support Best Buy. Don't support Nike. Don't support Adidas. There's a lot of stuff you'll have to stop supporting because there are some very shitty practices going on with these companies throughout the world, especially in third world type country areas where they have people who are literally so low waged, being stuck in sweatshops putting shit together. Like you can't deal with these companies. You couldn't deal with any of these companies. A lot of grocery store chains, a lot of there's a lot of companies you wouldn't be able to deal with. A lot of these internet service providers you wouldn't deal with because they outsource a lot of their call centers to different countries. Ones that are outside of their own, where the labor is cheaper, but it also makes it very much more difficult to speak with the people that you're trying to talk to. There's a lot of there's a lot of businesses that on the whole they're decent businesses, but they have a few shady dealings. Okay, I got interrupted briefly. But what I was saying, there's a lot of companies with some pretty shady business dealings that you probably wouldn't want to support, but every time you give that company money, you're supporting those dealings, whether you like it or not. That's the truth of the situation. Whether you like it or not, you're supporting that. So if you really feel that this is the disgusting thing that you cannot support with Nintendo, you feel like the whole company is bad at this point, cut it off. Hey, I might be a fan of Nintendo, but I don't kiss their ass. I like them. I don't kiss their ass. So if you don't like what they're doing, stop supporting them. That's all you have to do. Don't buy anything else from them. Don't pay for anything else from it. Don't spend your money on anything that would help them. That's all you have to do. Like, sure, it would suck to me to have less people getting into stuff, especially if it's good. But at the same time, if you really want to cut them off, you really dislike what they're doing, just come the fuck off. That's all you have to do. I don't get being outraged and in an uproar and mad about everything, but then still supporting them. If they are truly upsetting you, just do away with them. Like I said, it would suck. It really would. But I understand. That's the thing. I fully, wholeheartedly understand. I don't know. It's just... to me, this whole situation, it sucks either way. No matter how you spin it, it sucks. It sucks horribly. But I think we have to think things through a little bit more, analyze a little bit more before we react to something. And that's something I had to learn again very recently myself, because I responded to things thinking I knew what I had. I had all the information, then come to find out I didn't, and then I have to go back and correct myself. And I have no issue with that. I have no issue with anybody disliking stuff that a company is doing. Just don't support the company. That's all you gotta do. But that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears out for more of my stuff. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out.